So what I did was I came up with about 10 characteristics that I thought an assistant coach should have, and I asked each one of them to rate them and tell me a little bit why they picked the first one. By far, all these people, the number one trait that they want from an assistant coach is loyalty. It's loyalty. And I believe this, and you know this because you've been on some great staffs. Your staff has to have chemistry before your players have chemistry.
Whoa, that's a nugget. Wow.
It's true, isn't it, though?
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
Your team is watching your staff. Does your staff accept its roles? Do they support each other? Do they hold each other accountable? Now you can create that culture with it, but it has to start with your staff first. Yeah, Patton said it. I'd rather have a brilliant soldier. I'd rather have a loyal soldier than a brilliant soldier. And then the thing that came in second on that survey was work ethic. And when I got all this in, I was so excited because it didn't say anything about IQ. It didn't say anything about pedigree. It said loyalty and work ethic. I got that. I can control that. Everybody in this game can control that.
Hey, welcome to another Coaching You podcast with the Coach Brendan Suhr, presented by Noah Basketball. Today, amazing guest, Bob Starkey, one of the great college basketball coaches on the men's or women's side. Been assistant coach at the collegiate level for 42 years. He's the associate head coach at LSU. He lives a couple of miles from where I live in Baton Rouge. We've been friends forever. We are lifelong learners. We have the same ability we want to share and develop people. But let me tell you about Bob Starkey. He's one of the most disciplined, best teachers I know in basketball. His learning ability, his ability to teach, but he loves his players. He loves his coaching. I think this hour with Bob, you're going to look back on and keep this in your library. This is something as a coach or an assistant coach you will treasure. We'll be back after this quick time out from our partners with the great Bob Starkey. Noah Basketball is our new presenting sponsor of our Coaching You podcast. Noah Basketball is a shot tracking and data company that has helped change how coaches and players perfect the game's most important skill, shooting. Noah is a data service provider that uses machine learning and the latest computer vision technology to provide real-time data and feedback to improve shooting accuracy and consistency for professional and amateur basketball players. Noah has now analyzed over 570 million shots from countless high school, hundreds of college teams, and 28 NBA franchises. The technology is simply amazing. Once the system has been installed, players will be able to get immediate feedback on their shooting arc, left and right positioning, depth, makes or misses, and makes the data available to players and coaches on your mobile device. For more information about how Noah can help your team, visit noahbasketball.com. Our special guest today is one of my dearest friends. We live only a couple miles apart in the great city of Baton Rouge. The associate head coach of the LSU women's Tigers basketball team, the great Bob Starkey. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing wonderful, brother. Doing wonderful. Getting ready to tee up season number 41.
God, geez, you got a few years to catch me, but that's okay. But it's funny, for those that have never seen Bob and I together before on a podcast, one of the things that we had the amazing opportunity to work together at the University of Central Florida, UCF, for a year when we were both assistants, and it was incredible. We were in the same office space. We could walk down the hall and talk to each other. It was like my wife said, "Why are you going in every day?" I said, "Well, I have a best friend at work." And so I went in there, and it was like I had a clinic every day, and it was so unfair. I can't believe they even paid either one of us that year. It was so neat, to do that. But I really got struck this weekend, when you're at the Hall of Fame and I'm watching on TV. I couldn't travel up there. And I think I love that ceremony. I love going there for it. And you've had so many of your players inducted, either as an assistant on the men's side at LSU or on the women's side. And you love your players so much, and it comes through. It's reciprocal. Just talk about, first of all, your players.
Well, I mean, you and I talk about this all the time. They're our lifeblood. I mean, we're only as good as the players that we get to coach and teach. And I'm still somewhat one of those old school guys that demand a great deal from my players. And for me to do that, I got to love them pretty good too. So there's a lot of time involved in relationship building for me to coach the way I want to coach and the way I think I need to get the most out of them. And the majority of that's off the court, whether it's conversations in my office, whether they're at home where Sherry's making them a home cooked meal, or we're grabbing a cup of coffee somewhere, or we're texting, or there's a lot of back and forth with me and my players. And then the other thing, anytime I recruit a player, I tell them this is not for 4 years. It's for life, and I really really mean that. It's nothing for me to send a player of mine from 25 years a book. I read a book and I thought about this player, soon pop it in the mail. I'm going to remember them on their birthdays. I'm going to give them a call just whenever I think about them, and I want them to know that I'm there. I had a call from a player last night. Said, Coach, I just put your name down as a reference. It means everything to me. And you know this. You're in the same boat. When you get a wedding invitation or a baby picture or just a hey coach, I'm coming through town. Can we go to lunch? That that's far better than any game or championship I've won. And I don't know any other way to do that.
We got into coaching, you and I, very early in our lives, and it kind of just got thrown in, kind of trial and error. I mean, I had the greatest high school coach in boys basketball history. I can never believe I had UB Brown as my high school coach, and I can only think about someone like Morgan Wooten at the Matha or Bobby Hurley at St. Anthony's or guys like that being. But UB was also the best teacher in our school. But I had him in 10th grade. I had him ninth and 10th grade. But he made such an impression on me that I came home and I told my mother, who was a teacher, I said, Mom, I'm going to be a coach. And, she was disappointed. She said, like, we'll think about it. I know you like him. No, he's just taught me. He impacted me. So you got into coaching, and you've been around so many good people. But how'd you learn to coach, though? There's no school for it, really. I mean, I was a PE major. I took coach, but it didn't teach me how to coach the way we coach now.
Well, for me, my story is eerily similar to yours. I had an amazing junior high coach, Alan Osborne, who was a Bob Knight protege. I mean, we had candy stripe warm up pants like the Hoosiers, but we ran motion and played man to man defense, and he was a phenomenal teacher. So I got to see how he taught me on a day to day basis, and then he connected with me off the court. Uh, and it just had a huge impact on me. And I went to college as a journalism major. I was going to be a writer. My mom was all great with that. And at Marshall at the time was Stu Aberdeen. He was the men's basketball coach, and he had a basketball coaching class, and I took it. And the basketball 101, the first segment of his coaching class, he never mentioned an X or O. Talked about how you impact young people, how you communicate with people, the role you have in your community, how basketball's just it just boom. It just and I'm relaying that back to the impact that my junior high coach had on me. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. I love basketball. If I can use basketball to maybe impact somebody the way Alan impacted me, then that's the life I want to live. And like you, my parents weren't happy with that decision either. I think my mom thought I was going to win a Nobel Prize for writing or something. But between Allen and then Coach Aberdeen at that time, that was it, man. I had to be a coach, and I've been lucky my whole career. I've worked for 11 different head coaches on the collegiate level. All 11 of them have been completely different in style and philosophy, uh, and I've learned from every one of them. One of my some advice I would give to assistant coaches. Sometimes these kids want to come be an assistant coach and tell the head coach what they need to be doing and what you got to go in there and you got to learn. And if you I'm a good coach now because I've been with 11 different people and seen so many different ways to teach this game. And there's no one way to teach this game be successful. There's a ton. And so I've been blessed. Here I am. I'm working for Kim Mulkey. I'm 62 years old and have achieved quite a bit. You ask anybody here, my first month of practice, I hardly opened my mouth. It was all about observation. It was all about learning and figuring out what my role was and what was Coach Mulkey's needs. And um, every stop I've had has been exciting because I like to learn. And if you like to learn, if you have that mindset, it really helps you as you transition from job to job, which is going to happen if you're an assistant for a long period of time.
You know, one of the things that you and I, we are advocates for coaches, and you taught me years ago, Brendan, it doesn't matter if you're coaching men's basketball or women's basketball. Coaching is coaching. And frankly, I take that now to football, soccer, volleyball. Coaching is coaching. And it's about, so what are some of the things that are traits, qualities that you mentioned the big thing about having a growth mindset, but what are some other things that you can think of in advice to make believe? This is Stu Aberdeen. I knew since he was at Tennessee with the great Coach Mears, and I love Stewie, little Stu, and but if this was our coaching 101 for college assistants, what would be some things that we would teach them, and we can go through the whole gamut.
Well, the first thing, and you just hit on this, one of my a great Don Meyer quote: "It doesn't matter where you coach; it matters why."
Mm.
And you got a lot of young people out there now that they get into the business and they just want to start at a Power Five and make six figures, and that's not what it's about, and that's not necessarily the best way to learn your craft. I know when I first started, there were a couple things that were important to me. Number one was who I worked for. I wanted somebody of character and integrity. I didn't care if they were an NAIA coach or a Power Five coach. If they coach on the men's side or the women's side, I want somebody that I knew I was going to be able to respect. The second thing I wanted was responsibility. I want to work. And that doesn't mean necessarily I get all the scouts and I get to put in the offense. I want to work. I'll give you when I first started coaching, my first college job was at an HBC, West Virginia State College. Craig Carse was the head coach. Jim Boone was the assistant coach. The year before I came, they had gone 4-22, and they hired me as a second assistant. I was paid $6,000. I was given a dorm room and a meal card. And that first year, we went 18-10, one of the biggest turnarounds in NAIA history. And the athletic director, Richard Treadway, called me in after the season and said, Bob, this is embarrassing, but we've had some budget cuts. I'm going to have to cut your salary from 6 to 4,000, and we're not going to be able to afford the meal card. So my second year, we won 23 games and finished second in the West Virginia Athletic Conference.
Great
And
league, by the way.
oh, great
Great league.
conference.
Yeah.
Sedell 3. There's some great
Sure.
players came through there. So Dr. Treadway calls me in. He said, "This is so embarrassing." He said, I'm going to have to cut your salary down to 2,000, and we're not going to be able to afford the dorm room." So I pack up my clothes, throw them in a closet in the arena, and live in my office. And we go 31-3 and lose the national championship in Kansas City by 2 points. And during that time, Brennan, this is what a normal day for me would be. So we would practice. After practice, I would go up to my office and I would take written notes of things in practice that I need to remember, think about for tomorrow's practice plan, etc. By the time I got done, the guys would have cleared out of the locker room. I would go down, throw the socks and the jocks in the washing machine, then I go back upstairs, and then I would watch practice video and take some more notes. Then I come back, socks and jocks to the dryer, shorts and practice jerseys into the washer. Then I would go back up and I would make some recruiting calls and then come back. So anyway, before the night was done, I had all the guys' stuff laid back out. Now I had individual workouts in the morning. So if my individual workout started at 7:30, I had to get there about 6:30 because I had to clean the floor. And we didn't have a secretary. So anything that in terms of correspondence, recruiting, or otherwise had to come out of the office came directly from a handwritten note for me, or every now and then I would get behind the typewriter. My journalism background came in handy. But I can remember laying carpet in our locker room. I can remember me and Jim putting paneling up in our coach's office. And it was the most important time of my career. And I can't imagine being where I'm at not taking that path. And yet you got so many people that want to skip those steps. And it was, we didn't have scholarships. I'll say this, Brendan, you know this more than anything. Let me tell you something. If you want to go into coaching and you want to be successful, you have to have the mindset that I want to be a problem solver. I don't care where you coach. You can coach at NAI and no scholarship, I can go over everything, and people are going to say, "Well, you're at LSU now. You don't." Oh no, we got problems, just a different set of problems now. So you have to have, and I got this from Dale. There's no problems. There's opportunities and challenges. I mean,
I love
his
that.
attitude.
That's the great
And
Dale Brown we're talking about. The
absolutely.
legendary Dale Brown.
But that was my start. Then I got a chance to go to Marshall University and work for Judy Southern on the women's side. And my salary was $17,000. I thought I'd hit the
I was
lotto.
just gonna.
After 6, 4, and 2, hit 17. So I'm there for 1 year, and Dale offers me a job at LSU that's going to pay me 12, and I'm back to living in a dorm room. I'm going. I don't think twice. I'm not worried about making money at this point. I'm worried about growing as a coach. And now I got a chance to learn from Dale Brown, and so I just think don't get caught up when you're first getting in this business of what level you're at. Find a good coach that you can respect and enjoy the responsibilities that you're given, and learn as much about the game as you can from that. And to me, I'm just the most fortunate guy that I started at the bottom and worked my way up.
You, Dale, and myself had a great lunch a couple months ago, and it was you and I both said afterwards, people would have paid thousands of dollars to sit there and listen to him. It was so precious, and we both love him tremendously. But the thing that was beautiful about Dale, and what I always have loved about him, is he loves his players unconditionally and loves his staff. And I think those are really things that don't find don't find things that people do wrong. Find things that people do right. And I thought he was just so amazing, so positive a guy.
Well, see, you talked to me about my relationship with players, and it comes from the people that I work for. I saw Dale still does that. I'm still going to get a handwritten note from Dale every now and then. I'm going to get an email. I'm going to get a phone call, and I haven't worked for him for 30 years. And I know he's like that with all his players, all his coaches, his secretaries. I mean, so I am who I am because of who I've worked for, and Dale was a big part of that equation.
Yeah. So when now, as in mentoring uh, assistant coaches, if you were going to take assistant coaches under wing, and there's so many of them on staffs now. At the NBA level, we have 15 sometimes assistants on a staff. In college, we have 6, 8, or 10.
Yeah.
Every one of them wants to talk, I find, when I go in and consult with a team. The guy that's cutting up the video wants to talk like the associate head coach is talking. Nothing wrong with that if asked. But what advice would you give to coaches and their job of their defining their role, maybe even?
Well, again, this was about 30 years ago, but when I was working with Dale, there was nothing out there for assistant coaches in terms of books or videos. So I wanted to write a book. And the name of the book is The Art of Being an Assistant Coach. And what I did with this book is I created a 3-page survey questionnaire and I sent it out to about 250 coaches. And I had close to 100 return them. And they gave me so much information. I think the book's amazing, not because I wrote it, because these guys wrote it. Matter of fact, I want to read off some of the names of the coaches who turned their questionnaires back into me, who this information came from. Gene Bartow, Dick Bennett, Dale Brown, John Calipari, John Chaney, Jim Cruz, Denny Crum, Lefty Drizel, Eddie Fogler, Sue Gunner, Jim Herrick, Lou Holtz, grab me a
Wow.
football coach. Uh, Johnny Jones, Lon Kruger, John McLeod, Rick Majerus, Don Meyer, Dave Oden, Lute Olson, Tom Penders, Roger Reed, Debbie Ryan, Herb Sendek, Pat Summit, Eddie Sutton, Gary Williams, Roy Williams, and John Wooden all
Jeez.
responded on that survey. So I'm getting this information. So what I did was I came up with about 10 characteristics that I thought an assistant coach should have. And I asked each one of them to rate them and tell me a little bit why they picked the first one. By far, all these people, the number one trait that they want from an assistant coach is loyalty. It's loyalty. Um, and I believe this, and you know this because you've been on some great staffs. Your staff has to have chemistry before your players have chemistry.
Whoa.
You're, you're,
That's a
you're,
nugget.
it's
Wow.
true, isn't it, though?
Yeah. That's awesome. I love
Your
that.
team is watching your staff. Does your staff accept its roles? Do they support each other? Do they hold each other accountable? Now you can create that culture, but it has to start with your staff first. Yeah, Patton said it. I'd rather have a brilliant soldier. I'd rather have a loyal soldier than a brilliant soldier. And then the thing that came in second on that survey was work ethic. And when I got all this in, I was so excited because it didn't say anything about IQ. It didn't say anything about pedigree. It said loyalty and work ethic. I got that. I can control that. Everybody in this game can control that. Now, you got to think about what work ethic means. It's not busy work. You know, the best people I've been around have a great work ethic for the things that need to be done at that particular moment. And they're organized, they understand priorities, they understand relevance, uh, and they understand the sacrifices it takes to put that work ethic. Number three was communication. Number three was communication. And these coaches went into great detail. I have maybe one or two of these books left. I'm gonna make sure you get one.
Oh, man.
I'm gonna make sure you get one. But part of communication is your ability to listen, not hear, but listen. You know, Bob Knight used to say everybody hears, but only a few people listen. But here's the thing about communication, Brendan. You know, it's not just about communication with your players, your staff, your media, your administration, your fans, your alumni, the community. Um, it's body language, it's terminology, it's your ability to speak the truth. Communication is huge. Communication is huge. Number four was your ability to teach. Your ability to teach. I think Lombardi said they call it coaching, but it's teaching. And it really is true. It really is true. And I think one of the things I respect from you, you're a lifelong learner in terms of learning new ways, better ways to teach. You know, every generation changes. They absorb information differently. Um, I'm trying to think. I love Mike Dunlap's 5 steps to teaching, which we all know. The first one is explain what you want. Explain it. The second thing is to demonstrate to the learner, let them visually see it. Then let the player demonstrate, correct the demonstration, and then remember that repetition is Lord and Master.
Ooh, that's good.
Um,
Yeah.
your ability to teach. When they asked Bob Knight what he looked for in assistant coaches, he said he didn't look for recruiters; he looked for teachers. He said, "I'll teach and recruit. I want people who can make my players better." Teaching's big, and part of that is we some of these things interlap, right? Like your ability to communicate is going to make you a better teacher. Uh, Having the right terminology. I think we may have talked about this on a previous broadcast, but uh, there's a difference between correcting and criticizing. If a player makes a bad pass, you don't say that's a bad pass, Jane. You say, Jane, you need to make sure you drop that pass on the outside knee. Same thing with praise. You can't say good pass. Hell, they may not know what they did to make it a good pass. So your ability to teach also comes from your ability to communicate. It is such a challenge for coaches to find how each player absorbs knowledge these days. Way, way back in the day, you do it because I tell you to do it. Some people are going to be better verbal. Some are going to be better visual. Some people need to physically, and you've got to figure that out. And then you got to use that. But your ability to teach. The next one was a little surprising for some, leadership, because most people think, oh, I'm an assistant coach, so leadership comes from the head coach. No, no. You may not be the leader, but you're a leader. That's John Maxwell. He wrote a great book, by the way, called 360-Degree Leadership, where it talks about having a culture of leading everybody, everybody leading everybody. And, the biggest thing to me as an assistant coach when it's involved in leadership is something that Don Meyer taught me. Uh, your example is not the main thing, it's the only thing. If your players see you working, if the players see you enthusiastic, if the players see you solving problems, if the players see you being tough, when you're modeling that behavior, then that's what's going to get them to go to that next level themselves. I mean, that's what's really important. And then, of course, recruiting. Recruiting's got to be a part of the process. We talked about this earlier before we came on. The better the player, the smarter I am. That's always been. Jim Herrick responded on the survey that assistant coach has 2 jobs. Job number 1 is recruit. Job number 2 is recruit. So he was going to make sure he got that message across to his staff. The thing that young coaches have to understand about recruiting is being able to recruit the right player to your program. I mean, my wife can go to an AAU gym and point out who the best players are.
Right.
But there's an art to picking one for your system, one that can respond to your coach, one that fits the need that you have at that time. All that's important. The thing I would talk to assistant coaches about, this is a Stu Aberdeen story. You'll like this one. Recruiting is 24 hours a day in the way that you conduct yourself. Some of the worst coaches I've seen contact high school and AAU coaches only when they need players. Coach Aberdeen, Brendan, had this black spiral notebook, and he showed it to us in the class. And he would open it up, and there was a paper clip beside a name. And he would get in every single morning, open it up to that paper clip, and he would write 3 handwritten notes and then move that paper clip and go all the way through the notebook. And then when he got done, he would come back and start again. So every day he was writing 3 handwritten notes just to let somebody know, I'm thinking about you. And the majority of those people were high school coaches, junior college coaches. There were some media, some boosters in there, but is his way of networking and staying in contact. And I thought that was really important. Now here's the last thing in regards to this survey, because my last question is, can you tell me something I left off of the survey that I overlooked that you think's important? Boom, came back strong, heavy, initiative. your ability to do things without being told. This is a great thing for my junior high coach, Alan Osborne. I loaded up my Subaru in West Virginia to drive to Baton Rouge and stopped by his house. I said, "Give me some advice." And he said, "Be the assistant coach you would want if you were the head coach." So if I come
Awesome.
to work every morning, Brendan, I'm like, "What does my head coach need today?" She
Yep.
shouldn't have to tell me. My one of my major goals that I take pride in is what can I keep off Kim's plate on a daily basis? What can I handle so she can do the hard stuff? And her stuff is hard. But that initiative piece, that was huge for me.
That's that old Kevin Eastman line, right? Taking things off Doc Rivers' desk, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
taking it off his plate, so to speak. You know, that's fabulous. And I love the initiative one. That is incredible. Bob, when you John Wooden, who Dale Brown had this unbelievable relationship with, and I got to meet him. Uh, Saw him coach his last game ever at UCLA to win a national championship. I think it was in my second year of college coaching. And, you know, the thing I loved about him was, can you imagine what John Wooden would be compensated about nowadays?
Ooh, Nick Saban like.
You're right. 10,
Yeah.
12 million
Yeah.
dollars. If he wanted to be in the NBA, 18, 20 million, et cetera. But the thing that impressed me about him, the greatest coach really at that, by far in that era, is he was so humble, and and I remember, and we talked about it with Dale, is literally I heard him speak at one of the last clinics he did, a coaching clinic back then. Bob, actual clinic had like 900 attendees. Imagine that. Go figure.
Best.
People
That's
want to learn,
the
huh?
best.
Imagine that. Yeah. And at 7 o'clock in the morning, as I'm walking through the Marriott outside of Boston, he is sitting on a couch by himself. Can you imagine now if Coach K or any of these people were sitting on a couch in a hotel lobby with 800 high school coaches there? They couldn't be. There's no one with him. And he says, "Sit next to me, son. I'm 22. Tell me, what's your name? Tell me this." All he did was ask me questions. I didn't, and I never forgot it, and it's so beautiful. What attributes would you like to see, having been in this position? I've been in this. What would you like I call them the controllables, as you do. What would you like them also to possess? I think the survey was incredible. What other things, if you could get assistants to have, if you could, give them some things that, you know, traits that you would want from them also?
Well, I'll start with one that I got from Coach Wooden. One of Dale would go spend a week with Coach Wooden every summer and then come back and share the notes with our staff. And one day I just arbitrarily say, "Man, I killed to spend a couple of days with Coach Wooden." And what does Dale do? Sets it up. Next thing you know, I'm on a plane out to LA and I spend an entire day with Coach Wooden. And one of the questions I asked him, as me being assistant coach, is there any advice you would give me? And he say, pick something that's important to your head coach and become an expert at it. Whether it's post play, whether it's what does a coach need from you? Then you go out and you become an expert. You everything you're doing is to learn every little thing there is about that. And when you do that, the other thing he told me is you become indispensable. Do the little things and be an expert at something, and you become indispensable. One of the things that irritates me is so many in our business are spending way too much time worrying about, thinking about, and trying to figure out how to get that next job. And the best, the absolute best in this business are 10 toes in. That they are where their feet are at. Uh, One of my favorite Kevin Eastman things is to be there before you need to be there. And this is the truth now. 42 years, 11 head coaches, half of them are in the Hall of Fame themselves. I have only applied for one job my entire life, and I didn't get it. I did not get that job. Every other job I've got came about because somebody came after me because they observed me and thought that I could fill a need for them. And I think that is really important. Just if you do your job will be your resume. But if you're out there and there's a difference between networking and spending time trying to lobby for a job. And I just see so much of that. Now, everybody's in a hurry to get to a certain level, and instead of appreciating where they're at and learning what they can, especially this. Jim Boone's a Division III coach. That's one of the best freaking teachers I've ever been around. A freaking any level. It doesn't matter where you coach, it matters why. I know we could sit here and list a bunch of small college coaches. Some of the best practices I've seen are on the high school level. By the way, real quick before I forget it, Morgan Wooten's granddaughter is a manager for me this year.
Oh, I got to come see her.
How neat is that? So, but just be where your feet are and do your job to the best of your ability, and then the opportunities will follow.
I know this, we've never specifically spoke about this, but I'm almost 90% sure you, like me, I don't have a resume, and I've never had one.
I don't either.
No. Literally, someone in the last few years said, send us your resume. And I said, now they got Chat GPT. It's pretty damn good if you look on it. I mean, it's pretty good, man. You Google me used to be good, but now Chat GPT, I'm really a son of a bitch on there, boy. I'll tell you what, my mom would even be impressed, I think it's, my goal in life was to be a high school coach, and I wanted to be like Hubie, and that was my thing. And so I went to Montclair State, got a great education, PE degree. I'm ready to go, and I'm student teaching, and I'm ready to go try to be a high school coach. But then someone tells me I need to get a master's degree. If I get a master's degree, that will really help me for teaching. Good. So I'm going to go to either Duke, Boston College, or my friend is coaching at James Madison University, which is James Madison College at the time. But I'm going to go there because it's Mike Fratello, who's a friend of mine. Okay. And so he's 4 years older, but he's my friend. All of a sudden, during the middle of student teaching, I get a call from a guy I worked camp for every summer in college, Dick Vitale. I worked his day camp. He was a high school coach. And he calls and he says, I got the University of Detroit head coaching job Saturday. It's Monday morning. I want you to come down to Rutgers, where he was the assistant, and talk to me about coming with me. Where? University of Detroit? To do what? To be an assistant. Bob, this is 1973. There's only 2 assistants on a major college staff then. So I drive an hour down to New Brunswick, and I talk to him, and he says, you got the job. No, I didn't even graduate college. So I go out there, and, it turned into, a 50-year relationship working with the greatest of all time, as far as basketball. But he taught me so many things that you could never learn about: how to run a program, how to recruit, how to, network and everything with people. Because they couldn't stand us in Detroit. We were 2 guys from New Jersey. What are we doing there? And it turned out to be just an amazing opportunity. But, with Dick, and fast forward many years later, I'm now running the New York Knicks, and my mom's living in Jersey. She's 90 plus years old, and she's a former teacher. She says, I have to tell you, you've really been a disappointment to your dad and I. I said, what? I thought she confused me with my older brother, and so I said, what do you mean? She says, you never went in to become a teacher like we sent you to college for.
But you
I
have.
said, Mom, I teach professional players. I've been teaching for 50 years. No, not like a high school. And so, but it's the greatest job, coaching, of all time, because, and you're the greatest example, the impact that people like you, Dale Brown, Kim Mulkey, they leave on people. There's no job I could ever think of where we can help people out more than our players or other coaches we work with, the impact that we leave with them.
Sure. I got a question for you because you've coached as an assistant coach at the highest level. I mean, on the NBA level, and even with the dream team, your role there. What is something that maybe you got from the pro level as assistant coach that translated to the college level that maybe me or anybody else wouldn't have thought about because we haven't been at that ultimate
Yeah.
level?
Yeah. Well, what I learned is that we didn't have the technology that we had when I got into it 47 years ago at the pro level. So, we were doing half-inch reel-to-reel videos. There was no computers to now. There was no fast model. There was nothing to do. Everything was by hand. All the, you know, all the scouting. So now that we were allowed to do advanced scouting. And so what happened at the pro level was I had to be we didn't have coordinators, but I was I helped teach our defense and our offense so that during the course of a game, back then, Bob, that's when we were running set plays in the pros a lot. We had about 60 with the Pistons. Some guys like Lawrence Frank with the New Jersey Nets, he had 126. I remember that. So I would, thank God, my wife would disagree. I have a photographic basketball mind. I can't remember when bills are supposed to be paid, when the garbage goes out, but basketball, I'm a son of a gun. I'm good there. So I would know every play that the other team was running. I would also call the plays to Chuck during the game. I would say a run four up. Now do this, do that. And I'm keeping track during the game of the play, whether it's working or not, whether we're scoring on it, whether we're missing a shot, whether we're turning the ball over. Then I'm keeping track of what they're running back at us. I'm doing this in real time. That's why I had a clipboard out. And now I'm coaching Chuck. That's who I'm coaching. I'm not standing up. I'm not doing it. I am telling him, and thank God he was one of those assistant coaches that sat a part of the game and stood up when he needed to. Some of these coaches, they're like at half court now, and you can't have dialogue with them. So I think the biggest thing is, like right now, when I talk to either Isaiah or BJ Armstrong, and who I had 30 years ago, 35 years ago, and they say, we ran this play, and I'll tell them the play that they ran in Chicago. I said, yeah, you ran that 53, that pick and roll on the left side for Pippen, and how do you remember that? That's what that's what I did. I became a subject matter expert in those things so that literally I wouldn't even have to look at a report. I knew everything that they were doing. And I think now the players, you had credibility with the players. They knew you were competent. And I did back then, there was only me and Mike Fratello as assistants with UB. When I went to work with Chuck in Detroit, it's me and Brendan Malone, Michael Malone's dad. And so sometimes he's doing the advanced scouting and it's just me and Chuck. And so I did, over the course of my last 15 years of coaching, I did 100 scouts a year. I delivered the scouting report every game, you know. So, and that's without technology. And so what it forced you to do is work your ass off and be prepared. And then at LSU, when I came here to work with the great Johnny Jones, and my business partner now, Zach Kendrick, was help. My second year here, we need to go recruit, and I did every scout for us for the whole year. But that's what I was comfortable with. I had no problem. I didn't look at it like, well, geez, I'm doing all the work. No, it was an honor, and I believe in that also. I have to say it. I'm not down on assistants. I believe in having a master teacher, someone whose voice that is trained. That when I was with UB and Fratello did every scout. They were trained to his voice. When Mike became the head coach, I did every scout. And then when I was with Chuck, I did every scout for 3 different jobs. And I mean, literally, the staff we had in New Jersey is Paul Silas, Rick Carlisle, and myself are the assistants. Those guys didn't to do 1 scout. And I wasn't hoarding the stuff. It was just that that's what Chuck wanted. I would teach the offense, I would teach the defense. Chuck would then coach the game, you know, but I had to adjust. Yubi did all the coaching. You didn't get any input, you know, you know what I mean? You just got to do your job yeah, no problem with that. And that's your point about the 11 assistants, head coaches you served.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I do think one of the things that the normal person and even young coaches on this level don't understand the workload of an NBA coach. I remember coaching you in Orlando. Doc Rivers was talking, and he said, you know, he says, let me tell you, college guys, something. You've got to get 30 pregame messages ready. You got to get 30 halftime talks ready. You got to get 30 postgame talks. He says, I'm at a little over 100 for all those. And, you know, he talked about keeping a file folder with thoughts and ideas, or he finds a quote or an article. He keeps them because he's got to do this 100 times if you make the playoffs. And then when you do the same thing with scouting and practices, and I just have so much respect for the NBA game. But it also reminds me that what you just talked about, if I'm a young assistant coach, you need to embrace technology.
Oh,
Don't be one of those
absolutely.
guys that say, I don't know how to use a computer. You need like we just did a massive change on the software that we're using for scouting and film breakdown. And not because we were not satisfied with who we had, we found somebody better. So you're always looking for something better. The other thing that technology does, I remember when Skip Burtman was our athletic director and technology was just coming out. And I went up to him and sold him on this technology system that we never had. And it was, I don't know, it was about $25,000, which was an awful big
Oh,
chunk of
wow.
change back then. But I told him, I said, Coach, you know, we're going to be able to break down film and scouts where it may take us 4 or 5 hours. We're going to be able to do it in an hour and a half now. And he kind of looked at me and said, oh, well, you'll be able to get home a little bit earlier and do some things, won't you? I said, no, sir, that'll create more time for me to watch more film. And he looked at me and said, that's the answer I wanted. You got it. He gave it to me.
That's awesome. That,
Yeah.
that that is a great answer, by the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. And but it was an honest answer. I wasn't looking to get out of work. I'm the more you can do, the better you can be. The other thing that I would absolutely advise young assistant coaches. And I tell everybody I have one regret in all my years of coaching, and that's that I did not hire my financial advisor early enough. I told you my first job, I'm making 2017, and started out with Dale with 12. And I didn't think I made enough money. I was wrong. I needed a financial advisor from if I had a financial advisor from the beginning, we would have the beach in my background right now. But there's, the money piece is so difficult to explain to young coaches. Early, it just doesn't need to be that big a factor. And I'm not saying money's not important. Money's critically important. It's how you pay the bills. It's how you take care of your family. You got retirement. But early on, I passed on better paying jobs because I liked who I was working for and I thought I was benefiting from it more. Then later, as I got older, then money was a little bit bigger issue. Not so I could buy me a convertible or this or that, but because I had a wife and you got retirement and everything. But that financial advisor changed my life. At about the mid 40s, I hired her, a lady named Kay Martin here in Baton Rouge, and she changed our financial structure. And I've got this. One of the big things she taught me is to have an emergency fund. So I have an emergency fund now. So if I get fired, and hey, let me tell you something: if you're coaching, you're going to get fired. I don't care how freaking good you are, you're going to get fired. And so this emergency fund would allow me to live the way I've been living for an entire year if I had to. So that gave me peace of mind. But the a financial advisor, even if you're young and you're not making that much money, I would recommend.
That's an incredible point, and one I didn't think about. The other point about assistant coaches getting fired, I've never been fired,
Oh wow!
but my head coach had been, and
The
my
new
contract was tied to his.
oh
All right. Or in the case of the great Chuck Daly, he retired. unexpectedly twice on me, twice. And guess what? Like, because he was an older guy, my contract was tied to him. So, the last time in Orlando, I got really pissed at him. And I said, why didn't you just go and tell them everything's fine? We had just had the best record in the Eastern Conference. I said, why didn't you just tell them everything's fine? And then when October starts, tell them you're not feeling real well, and then take a leave of absence, and I'll be the head coach. Instead, in May, 2 days after we lose in the playoffs, you got to tell them you want out. No coach is happy after they lose in the
That's
playoffs in high
exactly
school,
right.
college, or pro. And he didn't even tell his wife he was quitting, right? And then the next week, Shaquille comes over his house. This is because Bob and I love Shaquille. Shaquille lives next to Chuck in Orlando, in Isleworth. And he says, comes to Shaq's playing for the Lakers, and he comes over to Chuck's house and says, yo, Chuck, I want you to come coach the Lakers. Chuck goes, and Chuck loves Los Angeles, loves it. He loves Rodeo Drive. It's perfect Chuck Daly. He goes, oh my God, oh wow. So he takes Eric Musselman and I out to dinner. And he says, Shaq came to see me today. Whoa, why? He said he wants me to coach the Lakers. I said, Eric is excited. I'm excited. We're going to LA. We got Kobe and Shaq. He says, I told him no. I I I thought Eric Musselman was going to take the table and throw it over. I said, why did you've done this twice in 1 week to me now? He said, he's crying. And then a week later he says, I should have taken the job. I should take it. And Phil Jackson gets the job.
Yeah, Phil Jackson gets the job. Wow.
Second choice is Phil
History.
Jackson. Think about that.
Wow.
But you coach so many great ones on both sides of the ball. What makes the players great that you coached?
Well, first of all, they're all driven to be great. They're all driven to be great. If you don't have that drive, then you're going to hit the wall. Whether it's adversity, whether it's fatigue, but they're just driven. They all do the unrequired. I've coached a lot of good players who come to practice and give you everything. The great ones stay after, come in on the day off. They figure out the other stuff, like studying film, knowing your scout, rest and recovery. This is the things that we're working with on Flage now. Be a pro with rest and recovery.
Yeah. She's going to be a pro
She's
when she
definitely
leaves.
she
She's a
she has
star
a pro mentality, a pro work ethic. But
and
when
pro
you
talent.
yeah, when you're great, you understand all those components that go into it, and you take ownership to them. And the other thing, and I know you and I have talked about this at some of our lunches. The great ones don't get bored. They don't get bored. Coach Wooden told the story one time. Uh, what made Bill Walton great? And he said he never got bored with the fundamentals. And Don Meyer had the thing about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who up until LeBron passed him a year ago was the all-time leading scorer in the NBA. He had two shots: turnaround jump shot one way, a jump hook the other way. Don Meyer would say the great ones keep hitting those same boring winners over and over and over. So I just think they're very driven. They don't get bored. They do the unrequired. And I'll say this: they have some good teammates and coaching along the way.
Yeah. The best part of being you is you love teammates, coaching teammates and players, being part of a team. You know, you know, and that's the one thing that when you're not coaching, you know, that, you will miss the most at someday is not being part of that team because for so many years, competition was what you thrived on.
Well, Saban said that, didn't he? Saban said many times he couldn't imagine not coaching because he can't imagine not having a team. And I heard him, I think it was on Ryan Clark's podcast last week. I think it was that one, but talked about he's found a new team now, his broadcast team. And but teammates are important. I'm gonna tell you this right now, and I'll tell anybody this. Closest thing I have to a brother is Johnny Jones. He taught me how to be the consummate professional assistant coach. I was so lucky to work with him for 13 years. He taught me every single thing there is to know about being assistant coach on the court, off the court, how I dealt with players, boosters, coaches, life. I owe most everything I have as an assistant coach and what I've learned to Johnny. So, I'm thinking about this as you're naming off all these great people that you worked with. And sometimes we achieve greatness more because of our teammates than because of us. And I know that certainly is true for me.
Oh, absolutely. Bob, you're an incredible reader. Um, and Chuck Daly, I talked to me at the end of as he was, finished coaching, and he said to me, and he loved to read, but he always read novels, all those kind of things. Nothing of, I read different things. He's reading novels, right? And so he said to me, Brendan, I read a great coaching book. I read Good to Great by Jim Collins. I said, Chuck, that's a business book. He said, every book I read's a coaching book.
Yeah.
So that changed the way I do things. So now you're an incredible reader. You read things and then you take them and you apply to coaching. Would you teach the coaches that listen how to do that for you, how you do it?
Sure. Well, for me, I learned how to read a book from Dale Brown. So when I read a book, it's a personal thing. I read the book and I'm highlighting passages that affect me, whatever way, whether it's something I need to remember, or maybe it's just reassurance of something I did, or it's new information. I will write down uh, between the lines something to attach it. I might put team, which means I want to share this with the team, or I might put need to be better at this for me. Then I use, as a matter of fact, this is a great book, by the way, by Doug Lemov.
I've been wanting to get that. I need to get that.
It
Yep.
is phenomenal. But you can see right here, after I've highlighted it, I've got these little things to take it back. And then when I get done with all that, I go back and I type whatever I underlined, which helps me with my retention and also gives me a resource that I can share with other coaches. I literally have about, I would say, close to 200, 250 book notes typed up. Somebody will say, Coach, what you got on leadership? And I'll pull, I got 12 books on leadership, and I'll send it to them. So, but Dale taught me how to do the underline and move. And now Dale would have his secretary, Wanda Carrier, type up the notes. So, but as assistant coach, I got to type them up. But I think there's a difference between reading and absorbing. And I want to get something out of a book. Same thing with the clinic. And it doesn't have to be a lot. I've always said if I read a book, go to a clinic, watch a tape, if I get one thing that makes me better, can help my team, wow, that was massive. So I do believe in it. We make our team read books in the off season, and they had for Kevin Eastman's book was our book this summer. Why the best are the
Was it?
best.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a
So and
terrific book.
this is the fourth time I've used Kevin's book. Once at A&M, once at Auburn, twice now at LSU. So, but they have to read the book. They have a 3-page report that they have to do. The first page on what they thought about the book. The second page has to be something in the book that impacted you. The third page has to be something in the book that you're going to put to use this season, and then how. And then we'll do other things. Like with Kevin's book, there's 25 power words. So we make each player pick their own individual power word, and they're going to explain to the team next week why they picked that word. Um, I'll tell you something that we do every 2 years at Christmas. You're going to love this one. We give our kids the coffee bean book. by John and Damon, because it's just a very short read. It's very easy to read at Christmas break, but you know you're getting ready to get to the SEC season, and you're going to run into some hot water. So let's get them thinking about now. Are we going to be the carrot, or are we going to be the coffee bean? So we do a lot of that. We'll give them an article to read. This is something that I think great for assistant coaches to do, because we always talk about the perils and negatives of the cell phone. I shoot my kids a quote every morning on their cell phone because I know they're going to read it. I know I could write it up on the chalkboard in the locker room and they'll walk right past it. But they're boom, bing, they're going to open it up. I'll send them a short video clip. Short video clip. It may be one possession from a game or a practice that lasts 14 seconds. And there's so much great stuff out there that's free to coaches. Now, you and I, we had to pay to go to a Converse clinic or buy one of Coach Meyer's videotapes. And now this podcast is a perfect example. The number of people that you have interviewed, the amount of knowledge you share with coaches just on your podcast is a learning of lifetime. And it's just out there at the fingertips for anybody who wants to learn.
And it doesn't matter what country you're in, what your government situation is, if you're rich or you're poor, these are free. And 100+ countries get our podcasts.
Wow.
Over 300 something episodes of the best coaches in the world. And you've been very kind several times to do this because you inspire me, because we're on a mission, both of us, to figure out how we can help coaches become better at what they're doing. That's our selfishness of wanting people to really become terrific at what they do and have the passion that's my wife, Bill, says, you don't do anything around this house. I said, I'm working at my job. I'm working at my craft. I'm trying to get better. She says, you don't have a team. I said, but I have coaches that need to coach. And it's the truth. I have an obligation, as you do, to educate so many, to help them. And it might be a high school coach. It might be a Division III coach that, it doesn't matter. I value every one of them, as you do. And I think it's great. My friend, I can't wait till we get to go to Phil's Oyster just to have a great lunch again and to continue our learning.
Yeah, there's no better time for me when you and I can sit down to lunch and just share.
I can't wait. I'm buying this time.
We might fight for that one. We might fight for you're retired. I'm still employed.
Only if Kim pays, then she can buy. But other than that, Bob, thank you so much as always. Best of luck this season. Look forward to coming up and seeing you soon.
Thanks, brother. I really enjoyed it.